person who seems a little too interested in your life, they may not like you. They may be looking for an opening, the coffee invite, the supportive text, the personal question that feels harmless at first. In the vetting phase, this isn't about connection. It is a quiet test to see where your boundaries end and where their influence can begin. Not every friendly question is dangerous, but in the early stage, you do not know if someone is connecting or collecting. I'm going to show you the openings manipulators look for before they push further, and the tactical adjustment that closes the opening before the first boundary test starts. Here is the quick test. Think about your last 3 conversations with that person. Were they asking about you, or were they asking questions that quietly exposed what you fear, what you tolerate, what you need, or what you excuse? To stop the scan, you have to know what they are looking for. The first opening is the information leak. It isn't about secrets, it's about social intelligence. It's the intel you hand over just to avoid an awkward silence. A new acquaintance asks, "How do you handle stress at work?" It sounds like small talk, but a normal person asks to relate. A scanner asks to locate. If the question feels out of sync with your level of intimacy, or if they dig into who causes the stress instead of the stress itself, pay attention. They are listening for your breaking point, the specific person or situation that makes you lose your composure. The viewer mistake is rescuing the tension. The silence stretches and you fill it, not because you wanted to share, but because the quiet felt like a social emergency. You traded intel for a moment of peace. The shield is the neutral pivot. The usual way. One task at a time. How about you? What's the stress level on your end? That's it. You have satisfied the social requirement of answering. You have given them nothing actionable. In a scan, the one asking the questions holds the power. The neutral pivot doesn't just end the scan, it switches the roles. The neutral pivot is not rudeness. It is not coldness. It is information hygiene. You are being warm and social without handing over the intel someone could use to leverage you later. Now here is what happens when the neutral pivot works. The conversation moves on. Nothing feels tense. Nothing feels confrontational. But you have just closed the first opening without the other person knowing it was closed. The question to start asking yourself in early-stage conversations is this: is this person running an intel versus interest audit on me? Interest sounds like curiosity. Intel collection sounds like inventory. You don't hand over that intel in one dramatic confession. You hand it over in pieces. A frustrated comment here. A name dropped there. A sigh that says more than the words around it. Each piece seems harmless. Together, they become a map of your emotional pressure points. Keep the map off the table until trust has been demonstrated, not just implied by charm, but when words fail, they switch to measuring your pulse. The second opening is the emotional reaction test. This one doesn't come as a direct question. It comes as a comment, a joke, a small observation delivered with a slight edge, and then they watch your face. Someone says, "Wow, you're brave for wearing that." Or they make a remark about a decision you made, framed lightly enough that calling it out feels like overreacting. What they are doing is scanning for your sensitivity threshold. They want to know how quickly you flinch, how fast you move to defend yourself, and whether a micro-insult can knock you off balance. If you over-explain, they learn you can be pulled into defense. If you laugh it off too quickly, they learn you will absorb low-level disrespect to keep the room comfortable. Either response is data. The mistake is flinching visibly or launching into a defense. The moment you start explaining why the comment wasn't fair, you have handed them the reaction they were looking for. The shield is the calm mirror. 2-second pause, flat tone. Interesting. What makes you say that? That is the full response. You are not attacking. You are not performing calm. You are turning the pressure back onto them and requiring them to explain what they meant. Most covert aggression cannot survive direct language. It depends on implication. The moment you force it into the open, the person either has to own it or retreat. Do not treat the pause as passive. The 2 seconds is active data collection. You are watching what they do when the pressure returns to their side of the table. Frame it that way internally, and it will show in how you hold yourself. This isn't just a scan anymore. This is the moment you are marked. There is a threshold in the vetting process where the behavior shifts. The broad questions stop. The casual probing stops, and something more specific begins. This is the golden period of the vetting process. They are making you feel safe, so that when they finally walk through the opening, you'll be the one who invited them in. Your only real advocate in the room. The one person who truly understands what you are dealing with. They move fast toward intimacy, faster than the relationship has earned. This is forced intimacy. And it is not warmth, it is selection. What it signals is that the scan produced enough data. They have located what they were looking for. Now they are positioning themselves close enough to use it. Once you recognize this threshold, the stakes change. You may be dealing with someone who has moved from curiosity to selection. That distinction matters because the next moves are no longer exploratory. They are targeted. The third opening is the social status check. This one happens in groups, and it is easy to miss because it looks like normal conversation. Someone talks over you, interrupts mid-sentence, redirects the room's attention at the exact moment people were leaning toward what you were saying. Sometimes it is not random. When it happens at the exact moment you have attention, treat it as data. They want to know your cost of entry, how much social pressure it takes before you yield the floor, go quiet, or shrink yourself to keep the peace. The mistake is self-deprecating to smooth it over, laughing it off, letting the interruption stand because confronting it feels like making a scene. The shield is finish and pivot. If they cut you off, finish your sentence at a steady pace. Do not speed up. Do not raise your voice. Just complete the thought at the same rhythm you started with. Then pause before acknowledging their point. You are not being aggressive. You are not talking over them. You are simply demonstrating that your focus cannot be derailed by a micro-interruption, that your words have weight, that the floor does not transfer just because someone reached for it. That signal, calm, unhurried, unbroken, registers. It tells them the compliance score is higher than they estimated, and that changes the calculation. Closing these individual gaps leads to the global shield, strategic anonymity. This is not about becoming cold or guarded or socially strange. You can be warm. You can be funny. You can be genuinely present in a conversation. Strategic anonymity is not about hiding who you are. It is about controlling the release of sensitive information until the other person has proven they can handle access. Your breaking points stay off the table. Your deep fears stay off the table. The specific people or situations that make you lose composure, those stay off the table, not forever, until trust has been demonstrated over time through consistent behavior, not just through charm. Here is the distinction that matters. Vulnerability is not the same as intel. You can be real without being readable. You can be kind without becoming accessible. You can be open without being unprotected. Vulnerability shared with someone who has earned it builds connection. The same information handed to someone who is cataloging your weaknesses becomes a lever. The difference is not what you share, it is when and with whom. Strategic anonymity is the long-term version of the neutral pivot. It is the operating posture that makes all three shields sustainable. You are not performing distance. You are simply not handing over the map until you know where the other person is trying to go. Closing the opening is only phase one. Once the scan produces nothing useful, once the information leak dries up, the emotional reaction test lands flat, and the status check doesn't move you. The dynamic shifts. If the scan was intentional, the next move is usually escalation. They move from measuring you to pushing you. They need to find out if your no is real or just a bluff. They need to know if your composure holds under actual pressure, not just mild probing. That is the next phase, and it has its own mechanics. The next video covers the first boundary test manipulators use to find out if you are actually easy to control or just harder to read than most. Watch it before someone runs it on you.